Welcome to Naked Spirituality, a video blog series of sacred attention therapy and the Center for Human Awakening. My name is Rob Meager. For more information about sacred attention therapy, the Center for Human Awakening, and our video blog series, please visit our website at www.centerforhumanawakening.com, and center is spelled C-E-N-T-E-R. These video blogs are intended to be spontaneous and scripted dialogues between myself and other supporters of the center. And our guest today is a returning guest, a soulful and loving supporter and friend of the Center for Human Awakening. Her name is Jessie Ann Nichols George. And I wanted to take the opportunity to check in with Jessie to see what she's been up to since the last time we chatted in October of 2016. And I'd now like to invite Jessie to come on screen.
Hi, Robert.
Hello, Jessie.
It's so good to be here with you.
It's nice to see you in that beautiful blue.
I think blue is kind of a soul color for me. It's that color I can just relax with. For me, it's a highly transformational color. Mm-hmm. But it's transformation into wisdom and greater wisdom. So I love the way this connects with my codes, and I was just feeling like this is the right thing for today, because I think we're dealing with a lot of wisdom in naked spirituality.
Well, I certainly want to touch on wisdom and your codes work. But I first want to ask you, what have you been up to? I understand you've experienced some of your own transformation, significant life changes since we last spoke in October 2016. What's been happening with you?
Well, the last time we spoke, I was on my way down to Indiana, I believe it was.
Yes.
And I was getting ready to go do some exploration in caves at that time.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I did, which was absolutely amazing. The connections of our true nature and life in caves and this whole functioning of things and how that connects with the whole multiverse has been absolutely amazing. And I went back to Sioux Falls, and at the end of last year, after we had spoken, I hit a really rough physical bout. Now, of course, my connection in Sioux Falls doesn't favor physical things very well. And so I said, okay, that's it. I got to make a shift. And I was actually going to move up into Canada, which my codes favor being in Canada. So I had a lot of things set in place to go to Canada. And then I got really, really sick to the point I was completely wiped out for a good 3 weeks. And, just totally not able to be out and about and doing things with people and things like that. So after that happened, I realized I was going to be on a path of about a 6-month recovery at minimum. And all the money that I had set aside to go into Canada and to get work permits and various things like that, and to get set up and to do all the permitting that has to be done, went to taking care of myself when I got sick at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, obviously, there's a different plan for me than going to Canada right now. And I realized, that's possible. I've got, family members that, may need help or things like that. And I thought, okay, it's just not time for me to leave the country right now. So I said, where in the United States can I go? And so back in Indiana, here I am. I actually shifted and moved out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I'm now residing near the Indianapolis area in Indiana, kind of in one of the northern suburbs to that, in an area called Carmel. And so I sit down and use my codes and go, okay, where is my energy going to flow a little bit better? Where can I open the doors and free myself up, get out of some of the restrictions that I've been under, and really make some bigger moves forward? And so this is where I landed, because I was kind of at that point. I needed to get out of Sioux Falls. As much as I love the people there, and it's a great little town there and everything. Not a lot there, but a great small town operating kind of like a big town in a way. And but I had to make that shift. And since I couldn't go the bigger step, I said, okay, obviously I've got to take an intermediary step. So here I am.
And I understand you've had some very positive experiences, been some very welcoming experiences there in Carmel, Indiana.
In Carmel, there has been. Now, the funny thing is I'm not coded to Indianapolis, so I have to kind of watch my parameters. And then I've noticed the more I step into my codes, the more I can also notice what I'm not coded to. So, just like anything, the more centered you become, the more you notice what isn't centered in your life. And so it's been a very interesting journey that way. Definitely, I've opened up some more pieces for myself in this process, some more understanding, some new layers in my own coding that I wasn't aware of. And since I've been here, yes, I've had some clients pop out of the woodwork all of a sudden that I wasn't getting before. I've had some other opportunities come up. So it's kind of exciting to watch it unfold.
Well, let's talk about that healing work that you're doing. What is the nature of the healing work that you're doing these days? Is it still focused around the code work?
It is still focused around the code work. I've actually opened up an aspect of being able to work with people on more of a coaching level. So people that just want to come in and maybe they're not looking for a full report of codes. We can work one-on-one like in an hour coaching session. And I can still explore anything with people. So I can actually sit down, and what I did, for example, with my own health concerns that I was dealing with, is I sit down and I look at what my codes are. I look at the health concerns that I'm dealing with. So at the end of the year, what I got hit with was I got hit with shingles, and I got hit with a major impacted sinus cavity issue.
Right.
And then on top of that, it triggered my multiple sclerosis, it triggered my lupus, and it triggered, this whole multitude of things that was going on. So I actually had multiple things running, and then I had either walking pneumonia or I was borderline pneumonia. So I had to be very, very careful. And of course, as you know, I was kind of mobile and I was being on the road. So all of a sudden I had to just stop and be in a space.
Yeah.
And, and that was just a whole new thing. So I look at all of those components and I see how those individual components like shingles and lupus and things are interacting with my codes.
Right.
And from there, I understand the lesson that needs to come out of that. I understand the awareness of where I need to put my focus.
Now, if people are new to your code work, you're using this word codes, my codes, and, working with people on their codes, and, you'll be working with them in a coaching capacity you've just mentioned, but the codes can factor into it. Can you share with people watching and listening, what are these codes? What is this code work that you do? Can you describe it?
Well, there's about 52 key patterns within codes, but within those 52 patterns, there are a lot of different layers. So I'm actually integrating about 50 or more different practices and tools and things like that. So some of it might incorporate some astrology, some of it might incorporate some numerology, but none of it's used in the traditional way that these tools have been used. I actually had this system unfold from a cat that I rescued from going over a waterfall who traveled around the U.S. with me for about a year, about 1.5 trips around the U.S. before she passed away. She was much older. And through our experiences, she was teaching me this whole realm of codes, which is like your frequency that you run on in this earth. And each one of us has a unique code pattern, even though there's 52 patterns and we think, there's millions and millions of people in the world, so there must be lots of people running on the same pattern as me. There's people that are running on similar patterns, but because each of us come in at a different point in time, each of us comes in with our own unique name, and I work with names a lot in things. And from there, I can start to see everything has this energy and this vibration to it. So even though, let's say you have two people and they're absolutely wonderful people, you're a wonderful person, I'm a wonderful person. I think our codes probably interact well. If I was to run them, I would probably go, oh yeah, we have a really favorable connection. But we could take another really nice person out there who's doing great things, and they may not flow with our energy well. We might find that all of a sudden we start getting argumentative, or we get ourselves into a competitive pattern, or things like that. So the codes I'm talking about are really kind of our own unique imprint in our existence, in this existence, and how that is interacting with everything else.
So is it fair to say that you help people identify their energetic signature and perhaps in the process compare how they're currently living their life and try and work with them to massage or transform into greater alignment with their codes or their energetic signature?
Yes, I think that's a great way to phrase it. It is an energetic signature. And as we're working with that, the more we can bring that signature or bring the things that we're interacting with, that we interact with a compatible signature for us. So even though, say, something might be a challenging, and this is what's really cool, because the foundation of my work is based in compassion, is that codes kind of remove the judgment. It's not that this is good and that is bad so much. I mean, for example, somebody might have revolutionary energy, and people might say, oh, that's a really negative energy to have. But when we learn how to work with that energy pattern, then we can put it to some really great usage. Or we understand that just because we're a revolutionary nature, that doesn't mean we have to have more revolutionary nature. That may or may not be beneficial for us. So it is this kind of coming into alignment. And when we bring it into alignment, we surround ourselves with more and more influences that are favorable for us as the individual. Then we start opening doors in a more effortless way. And that doesn't mean you never face a challenge because everybody's dealing with their own thing. You're going to go out and interact with people who aren't coded to what they're doing or where they are, things like that. And so it allows that space to open up and support you.
Could you also say that your work helps individuals come to terms with who they are, transform them into authenticity and an acceptance of who they are and that authenticity?
Most definitely. And I think with the code work, I think that's a really incredible piece I've taken away from it, is it's allowed me to understand so much about how I work in this world. It allows me to understand how my energy flows. So in understanding that, I realize that it will be wiser for me to do certain actions in life than to do other actions in life. It really helps me make a clearer, wiser decision when I need to with things. And, you know, again, it's not personal. If I choose not to hang out with somebody, it's not necessarily personal to them. It's just me taking care of myself in a sense. And if I know, for example, in my patterns, a big piece of my patterns is about balance. And it's about not getting too wrapped up in the material world, holding the balance between things, and not getting myself in a position that I'm having to constantly work so hard to support something material. And that happens in my code pattern. So I have a few different things, and we have the aspects of how we are in the outer world. We have our code patterns for how we are in the more inner world, like our intimate relationships or family or the people, friends that are close to us. And then we have also, say, like our bloodline or our heritage energy codes, which are our family name energy.
Now, To switch the subject just a little bit, because I enjoyed asking you about this 6 months ago, and I'm
Hmm.
going to ask again because a lot has been going on around the world in the 6 months that we have met, mostly geopolitical. So
Yeah.
there's been a major shift in the political environment in North America vis-a-vis the recent election
Yes.
in the US. In the Middle East, interesting things happening in there, and its impact on other parts of the world on the other side of the Atlantic. Of course, North Korea, the Far East, there's interesting things happening there. And here's the question that I wanted to ask you again, because we explored it 6 months ago, was what spiritual challenges are you finding that people are dealing with these days? Of course, there's many perceived influences from outside, and I just spoke about many of those. But what spiritual challenges do you find people are dealing with these days?
And, I feel like compassion is a big spiritual challenge for a lot of people, Robert. We hear this a lot, especially where it relates to politics and various things, where people, they're so ready to be on the offensive. They're so ready to attack right now. And of course, there's many layers and many reasons behind that. But people are feeling very, very anxious and I think very afraid of the direction of a lot of things. And that's challenging them to be in compassion. And
Mm.
instead of embracing this, saying, hey, here's my opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to really embrace compassion, for so many people, it seems like they have a hard time uh, accepting what is different than their thoughts.
Mm.
And so if they think somebody's doing something wrong, if they think somebody's going to destroy the environment or whatever the case or the cause is, they're just too ready to hate instead of saying, why is this person doing this? What might have happened to them? What
Mm.
might have been the way they grew up
Mm-hmm.
that created the space that they're in? And this is where we start to open the door to compassion, because bullies don't become bullies on their own. They get that from somewhere. They've developed it. It's a defense mechanism, or it's a learned behavior, or it's a survival mechanism, or whatever it is for them.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't get there on their own. So they had to have gone through something that was very, very challenging in their life to get to that space. And when we can open our hearts and find compassion for the challenges they've been through that's created the space they're in,
Mm-hmm.
now we can actually bridge the door to remove them and to allow them or give them an option to step into a different space and maybe meet us somewhere, maybe start to find compassion themselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, compassion is a big part of your work. It's a cornerstone of your work, if not the foundation of your work. How did you come to working with compassion or for compassion?
It definitely is the foundation of my work. And of course, as you know, I've got books out related to that. And when I started to look at things, I said, they start off, they say, well, really, you got to find that topic. You got to find what your message is. And I was like, well, which out of like the 500 messages do I want to focus on? So I had to kind of take a reverse tactic to this. And I had to say, what are my pet peeves? What are the things that tend to trigger me? And the things that triggered me was judgment. It all came back to judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I said, and what is the balance to judgment? It's compassion.
Mm.
And that is where I came into compassion. And growing up, there was a lot of judgment. I was the kid that was picked on. I was the little nerdy band kid and the kid that wasn't in the popular group of kids and all of that. And, certainly I found my blessings in not running with that other group of people, because it taught me to be very independent. It taught me to think in different directions. And it opened, I think, many, many doors for me instead of locking me in to one particular area of seeing things. And so as a result of those experiences growing up, and, at first it was because I wasn't popular, I was being judged. And then it was because we would take these great vacations when I was a kid, like to Hawaii and Maui. And we did that because my dad worked for the airlines. And so going there was cheaper than getting in the car and driving someplace for our vacation. So then I got judged for that. And then as I grew up and I got a little bit older and I was kind of going my way, I then went into modeling school for a little bit and things. And so then I was being judged by my looks and not for who I was. So when I really looked at this message, I said, this is the perfect message for me, because people need to know that the eyes can deceive us. And if we only see with those human eyes and not with the soul eyes, not with the eyes of compassion, we're only going to see humanly things. We're going to lock ourselves into that judgment pattern. But when we're willing to open up, then we can move into the compassion. When we're willing to look at something beyond the material, then we can open that door.
What a beautiful, beautiful message, Jessie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Jessie, these days, if people wanted to reach out to you or they needed to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do so? By email, social media, through your website? How can they get in touch with you, Jessie?
Lots of options. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter a lot, but I do have an account there.
Okay.
So I would say Facebook is very easy. People can always message me through there. They can reach me through email, which is JANG, that's my initials, Jessie on Nichols George, at compassioncodes with an S on the end, .com.
Okay.
Or they can go to my website, which is compassioncodes.com.
Wonderful. I'll make sure that that's scrolling in the credits at the end.
Okay.
Okay. Look, Jessie, I want to thank you so much for sharing your messages of love and compassion with us. And let's stay in touch, and hopefully not in another 6 months. Will we connect again?
Definitely. Let's make it a little sooner than 6 months down the line.
And we'll see what adventures you've been up to at that time.
So many things are falling into place right now, and it's such a beautiful time coming upon the full moon energy, and I'm actually getting ready to go hide away for about 4 days in the middle of the woods here and just disconnect from electronics and technology and just enjoy a little cabin in the woods. So
well, I look forward to hearing about that wonderful adventure.
It's going to be an important one because it connects to my work.
Very
so
good. Wonderful. Thank you, Jessie.
Thank you, Robert.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.